20 minutes after takeoff, while ascending to an altitude of 10,000 meters, the left engine of the Boeing 737 suddenly exploded. This caused the aircraft to lose balance and shake violently. However, that was not the most terrifying part. Look at this window. A female passenger is being pulled halfway out into the open sky. Her condition is extremely critical. Inside the cockpit, tension was suffocating. She was once an outstanding pilot in the U.S. Navy, but this time, she faced a true test of her skills because this was not a fighter jet, it was a Boeing 737. The lives of 149 people were in the hands of the flight crew. How would the pilots handle this situation? What would be the fate of this flight? A miracle or a disaster? To find out more, fasten your seatbelt and join us on Southwest Airlines Flight 1380, SVKA 1380. April 17, 2018, LaGuardia Airport, New York City, USA. Southwest Airlines Flight 1380 was a scheduled passenger flight to Dallas Love Field, Texas, operated by Southwest Airlines, the largest low-cost airline in the U.S. The flight was carried out on a Boeing 737-700, an 18-year-old aircraft from the 737 Next Generation series. Like other aircraft of the same type, it was equipped with two CFM56-7B turbofan engines, one of the safest engines in the world. At 10:20 a.m., the aircraft completed refueling and pre-flight checks for a 3-hour journey covering 2,300 kilometers. On board were 149 people, including 144 passengers and 5 crew members. The captain of the flight was Tammy Jo Schultz, 56 years old, a remarkable woman you should pay attention to. She was the first female pilot to fly the F/A-18 fighter jet and one of the first female pilots to serve in the U.S. Navy. Schultz had worked for Southwest Airlines since 1994, accumulating 11,715 flight hours, including 10,513 hours on the Boeing 737. The first officer, Darren Lee Elzer, 44 years old, was a former U.S. Air Force pilot who had served in the Iraq War. He had been with the airline since 2008, accumulating 9,508 flight hours, including 6,927 hours on the Boeing 737. At 10:43 a.m., the crew received clearance for takeoff. 18 minutes after takeoff, Flight 1380 was handed over to New York Air Traffic Control, ATC. The captain requested to climb from FL 300, 30,000 feet, to FL 380, 38,000 feet, and was granted permission. At this time, the aircraft was stable, heading toward Vinci Waypoint, and no one could have foreseen the horror that was about to unfold. At 11:03 a.m., as the Boeing 737 was climbing to 32,000 feet, the left engine unexpectedly exploded, shocking the entire crew. Fragments of metal struck the fuselage and tail, shattering a passenger window. The extreme pressure difference between the cabin and the outside air instantly sucked a female passenger out of the aircraft. Fortunately, 2 passengers managed to grab her legs, but from the waist up, she was completely outside the aircraft, hanging in midair. That passenger was Jennifer Riordan, 43 years old, a Wells Fargo bank executive from New Mexico, returning home from a business trip. The fire alarm blared, and the aircraft rapidly depressurized. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, and passengers grabbed them in desperation. Due to the explosion, some control surfaces on the wings had fallen off, causing the Boeing to shake violently until 40 degrees to the left. Inside the cockpit, as warning alarms blared, the crew quickly realized that the left engine RPM and fuel pressure had dropped to 0. The aircraft had now descended to 28,000 feet. The captain immediately activated the fire suppression system, cutting off the damaged engine. At the same time, she struggled to regain control of the aircraft's balance. Only after these first critical actions did the crew finally put on their oxygen masks, as the oxygen supply was depleting rapidly. Without immediate action, everyone on board would soon lose consciousness, leading to certain death. The only way to ensure survival was to make an emergency landing. Captain Schultz tried to contact ATC, but due to mask interference, she couldn't hear their responses clearly. Fortunately, with her experience and intelligence, she quickly identified the issue and reactivated the microphone. New York Center, this is Southwest 1380. Our engine has caught fire, and we need to land immediately. The nearest airport was Harrisburg, but First Officer Elzer suggested diverting to Philadelphia instead, as it had better firefighting and emergency medical facilities. ATC, can we land at Philadelphia? Absolutely. Descend to 11,000 feet and maintain that altitude. At 11:05 a.m., after partially stabilizing the situation, Captain Schultz handed over control of the aircraft to the first officer while she searched the emergency procedures for single-engine landing guidance. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in the cabin. Many passengers, believing their lives were ending, began crying, praying, and even live-streaming their final moments. Rescue efforts for Jennifer Riordan were underway. 2 flight attendants, along with firefighter Andrew Needham, worked together to pull her back inside the cabin and performed CPR. Unfortunately, her injuries were severe, and her condition was critical. By 11:10 a.m., the aircraft had descended to 8,000 feet, making breathing easier. The captain resumed full control while the first officer monitored the systems. At 11:14 a.m., ATC granted clearance to land on runway 27L in Philadelphia. The pilots now faced a tough decision. Captain Schultz chose the second option, reducing flap settings to flap 5 instead of flap 15 to land faster while maintaining stability. At 11:20 a.m., against all odds, the damaged Boeing 737 landed safely. The passengers erupted in joy, thanking God for the miracle. However, for Jennifer Riordan, the miracle did not come. Despite immediate medical attention, she succumbed to her injuries at the hospital, becoming the first fatality in a U.S. airline accident in over 9 years. A 1-year investigation found that the left engine's fan blade, number 13, had a 1.23 centimeters deep crack that went undetected before takeoff. This caused the blade to break mid-flight, triggering the explosion. Southwest Airlines faced heavy scrutiny as 75% of their maintenance was outsourced, raising concerns about inspection quality. Despite this tragedy, Captain Tammy Jo Schultz was hailed as a hero for her calmness and exceptional piloting skills, which saved 148 lives. On May 1, 2018, President Donald Trump welcomed the flight crew and selected passengers to the White House, honoring their bravery. Captain Schultz later wrote the book Nerves of Steel, encouraging people to trust themselves and stay strong in all situations.